some would say I have a problem, and I'm not sure I'm not in 100% agreement. I have a couple of problems actually. Coffee. This is a problem for me. I saw some work online the other day from a guy named Philip White. It was a piece he did for Sony Professional. And I was really impressed with his work. The work I saw was wedding work, and he had done something in the wedding video that I've been trying to do for myself for a long time and do it, and that's just reducing the amount of stuff I carry. But honestly, over the years I've just acquired lots of lenses. Now, I don't carry all of these all the time, but I carry too many of them, and some of them sort of overlap each other as far as what they do. And I'm contemplating getting rid of some. I mean, some of them are vintage, so they're not like worth a whole lot of money monetarily. Some of them are not mine to give away. I mean, this one I got from my dad. This is an old Minolta 55 1.7 that goes on a vintage camera, which is not mine to get rid of, nor would I want to. It's a great lens for if you're going to be shooting film, which I do sometimes. If I eliminate the ones that I just don't carry, I really don't carry this one either. This is a Russian Helios 44-2. It's a 58mm f2 lens, which is really kind of cool. It would be, of all the vintage lenses I have, it would be the one that I would grab if I felt like shooting with a vintage lens, only because it looks so different than the rest of them. I'd like to have all of these and the one that's on the camera now down to 3. The problem is which 3? Maybe 4. So a 7.5mm Bauer Rokinon Samyang. It was a 1235 for a Panasonic, 25 from Voigtlander, but this is ridiculously fast. 35 to 100, a 50 from Nikon, a 42.5 from Panasonic, a 85 from Rokinon / Samyang. Let's take this one off the table. This is a 7.5. It's a fisheye. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I hardly ever shoot with it. As far as carrying it every day, I don't think I will anymore. These two are like the go-to lenses if you're a Canon shooter or even a Nikon shooter, and you are the kind of guy who carries a 12 or like a 24-70 and a 70-200. These are those two lenses. On micro four thirds with a 2x crop factor, the 12-35 is equivalent to about a 24-70, and the 35-100 is equivalent to about a 70-200. So these two lenses, with these two lenses, you could shoot pretty much everything. The problem is they're f2.8, which on a full frame camera can get you fairly shallow depth of field, but on a micro four thirds camera, it's really not. These two combined sort of make like the GH4 like an awesome video camera, and it kind of looks like a video camera. To get any kind of depth of field, you really need a faster lens than that. Or I should say, to get any shallower depth of field, you really need a faster lens. And that's where this one comes in. This is a Voigtlander f.95. So it's 25mm, 0.95. You put this on the GH4, it looks like a 50, 50 1.2 in full frame terms. As far as characteristics go, field of view and depth of field. So these three have a lot going for it. And I think I need to keep these two, just because they're such a big range. These are really great lenses, and they're sharp, and they're great for photography as well. It's really these three. If I take these off the table, and it comes down to 1, 2, 3, 4. Of these 4, I could keep more than one, but I don't think I need to carry more than one. And the reason these 4 are difficult to choose from is because they're in between. They're all like fairly close to being a normal lens. This is the longest at 85, but I have a speed booster here, so it makes it look more like 100, which I know is a long lens. And the 50 doesn't look like a 50 on that camera with the speed booster, which is how it works. On the speed booster, this 50 looks more like a 60, which is a little longer than a 50, but not a lot, you know. Cameras used to come with a 58, you know. This is a 58. 58, 60, whatever it takes, right? This one is interesting because it's super small, but it's the equivalent of an 85. It's a 42.5, 1.7, and on a GH4 that is equivalent to an 85 millimeter 1.7. So this is like a portrait lens. But so is this. This is the equivalent of an 85, and this is the equivalent of 100. Do I really need both? But this one's faster, and this one focuses much closer. That's the problem with this one. It won't focus less than a meter, like 3 feet and change. And this is ridiculously fast. Ridiculous. And this is classic. I mean, this is probably one of the most produced lenses ever made. Nikon 50 1.8. It comes in 2 or 3 different versions. There's an all manual version. This is an automatic version, or a autofocus version. But the motor is in the camera, not in the lens, so it's a fairly light lens. You put it on the speed booster, it's a little bit heavier, a little bit bulkier, but not, you know, not that much. I think the only way to choose here is to shoot with them. And one of the things on my list last week was to go out and shoot something, so I think I'm going to have to go out and shoot something today. I just don't know what, and I really don't need to devote very much time to it, so I need to stay local. And I think the only way to do it is to go out with all of these 4 and see which ones I like to shoot with them the most. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Which would I prefer to shoot with? I have a shoot on Wednesday, and I'm going to try to go to that shoot with 1 camera, 3 lenses, alright, 2 cameras. I have backup. 3 lenses and a monopod, and that's it. Okay, so I guess this is the end of the blog and end of the evaluation. I have been working on this for entirely too long, so I need to wrap it up. I did go out to the backyard and shoot with the lenses that were in question. Here is some of the footage of that, and I'll be honest with you, the differences were minimal. I'm sure that someone with far more experience than myself could, you know, take a look at these lenses and go, I like that one, I don't like that one, I do like this one, I don't like that one, and be able to choose between the 4. I didn't shoot the 85. I kind of ran out of time, and the 85 is one of the ones that I think is the least in question. I do think that I can keep more than one at this point, but especially after looking at it on the big screen here in the basement. I looked at it on the screen of my laptop, and I honestly, it wasn't big enough, and there wasn't enough detail. I didn't shoot this stuff in 4K, but I can look at it here on this computer and kind of sort of evaluate. And the thing that makes this kind of a decision difficult to make is that all of the 3 lenses I was really looking at, they're all great. They just do different things. At the same time, I was also looking at, I started playing around with a friend's A7S, which is a full frame Sony camera, which is super popular right now among people who do what I do, which is a lot of wedding work and some corporate stuff as well, mostly for the low light capabilities. It is fantastic in low light, but also it's just full frame, and it's got a lot of more features than the Canons do. But I kind of gave up full frame cameras in favor of micro four thirds, and part of my doing this was to make sure that I wasn't missing something with micro four thirds, and honestly I just don't think I am. Especially this Voigtlander 25 f.95. Of all the lenses I looked at, I think this one is the one that is the must carry. I think the other 3, the 85 Rokinon, the 42.5 Panasonic, and the 50 from Nikon, I think those 3 you can almost choose between them and get something decent. I think if I'm going out to do photography, no question the Panasonic 42.5. It autofocuses, it's got body stabilization. If I'm going super light, and light, the amount of light is not going to be an issue, because it's the slowest of the 3 f1.7. Which is crazy, right? That a 1.7 lens is slow by comparison, but it is. If I'm going out to do photography and video, then no question that's the lens to take. If I'm going to do a wedding, the choice between the 50 and the 85, I don't know. It's tough. This is Wednesday. I've got to shoot today, and so these are the lenses I've been playing with for the last couple days. And honestly, I don't want to bring them all. I have the cameras on the tripod with the 12-35. I'm gonna bring it because I want a wide. That's my widest lens, so I'm gonna bring that. I also borrowed an A7S from a friend just to try out. Thanks, Trip, with a lens to go with it. One lens to go with it. So this doesn't count. That's just a try out. I want to bring this 25 Voigtlander because I think it's going to be the same sort of shot I get with A7S. So I want to bring it. So that's going in the back. And of these 3, I need to bring one. This is the one I bought most recently. This is an 85. This is a 42.5. I guess I'll have to decide at the end of the day. How about that? How about that? I'll decide at the end of the day. Still bringing a lot less stuff than I normally do, and that's something. It's not nothing, as they say. Basically, I couldn't decide. I couldn't decide which one to take on the shoot on Wednesday, as you've seen in the video. And so I just took them all. And over the course of the day, I shot with all of them at least a little bit. Which one do I prefer to shoot with? I really like that 25. I mean, I've sort of fallen in love with that lens again. I bought it and I loved it, and I've used it a lot when it gets dark. But part of the thing is chasing that 50mm look on a full frame camera. And here's a shot I did with the Sony A7S with a 50 at 1.8 and my Micro Four Thirds GH4 with the Voigtlander 25 at 0.95. The same framing, the color's different obviously, but the same framing, and you honestly cannot tell the difference between the two. I mean, as far as framing and depth of field. Now, the GH4 shot is sharper, but it's not, the field of view and the depth of field is the same. I don't know, you could show it to I think you could show it to anybody and say pick the full frame camera, and I don't know that they could do it. And what's the difference? So I really don't think I'm missing anything in as far as that. I guess I have to conclude something. Here's two more shots. One of them I shot with the Canon or the Sony A7S with a 50mm lens, and one of them I shot with the GH4 with the Voigtlander again at 0.95, using both are wide open, and I used the ND filter to correct the exposure. And I think at the end of the day, I still prefer the GH4's image. I had a thought there for a minute that I should invest in a full frame camera, but I think if you use the right glass, it doesn't really even matter. I think to conclude, I think I'm going to keep everything. Keep the lenses I have, and you know, I think I am going to continue. If I'm going to carry three, it's going to be the 12-35, the 35-100, and the 25. It's just classic, and it looks great, and it's super fast. There is a part of me that wants to sell some of the other ones and buy a Voigtlander's 10mm version of that lens, so it's super wide and super fast. I love wide lenses, but I don't actually have one right now. I've got that fisheye, but it's a fisheye, so. So I think if I'm going to come to a conclusion, of all of the lenses, the 25 is the one to carry. The next, if I'm going to carry 4 lenses, I think it's going to have to be, if I anticipate doing some, if I'm just doing photography and just doing it for me, I'm probably going to carry that 42.5 from Panasonic. If I'm doing a wedding, I think I'm going to carry the 85. And if I anticipate being very close to my subject, and I'll probably carry the Nikon 50. So I think I'm going to leave 2 of them here every time I go out, but I think I'm definitely going to take one of those. So of the 4, the question in this blog was, of the 4, which one am I going to carry all the time? Voigtlander 25. The next is probably going to be the 85, just because it's so good looking. As long as you don't have to focus within a meter or so, I think you're good. So I hope that helps. I know this was long and it was a departure from the stuff I have done otherwise, but maybe it helped. I think it helped me, so maybe it'll help somebody else. Thanks. It definitely helped me decide that I don't actually need to invest in a full frame camera. The question is will Panasonic do something about an A7, an AF100 successor, which would be nice, or maybe a GH5 would be nice. Maybe a little bit of low light, better low light, who knows. Anyway, thanks, and we'll see what we do about the next blog. I don't know what I'm going to cover next time. Thanks.